All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We're a tad behind here. You know, I gotta say, I couldn't help but notice the delta in the quality of PowerPoint. I hope that's not a reflection of the careers that you guys had. You know, one of the things I wanted to ask is, I think all of you have had very unique career journeys, and I wanted to ask, was there maybe, or can you share a pivotal moment in your career path that has led you to be here at Cheryl? I think you did share a little bit about yours, but I'm curious, YB or HyeSun, if there was a critical juncture for you.
Yeah, I've got one. It's not going to fit, I think, the way that you think, but I think you got a question later about networking and stuff, and that's probably a better one for the theme. But I do want to share mine. Is the reason I'm here is as I walked through my career early in my presentation, I was in New York working in investment banking, and if you're in investment banking, there's a very clear track of what you do. You work hard, you go into private equity, you become this super rich, obnoxious person, and I was down to be that, and I thought that's what I was going to do. But in banking, you work really hard, and you take yourself a little too seriously, and that's what I was doing in New York as well, and I was working on live deals, and my brother, if any of y'all know him, I'm sorry, but he's a year older than me. He married a woman from Korea, and I went to their wedding. Hey, Stephen Brown, he was there at that wedding too. I went to that wedding in Korea from New York, attended that, but then they had a reception in Seattle as well, and I didn't come back for that because I was so busy. I was doing deals. I was making things happen, making it rain, and that didn't sit well with me. It just felt like a really bad choice to have made, and so from that point on, I said that is probably not the life I want to live. And so I told them, okay, that's wrong. None of that is happening again. When you all have kids, I'm moving back to Seattle, like whatever's happening, and that's how I come. And so they got pregnant right away. I thought this had like 7 more years in New York, and so, but a deal's a deal. And so that for me was a big thing. And at the time, I did, it'd be dishonest to say I didn't have a lot of heartburn around it, because I still had a long ways to go in New York, and a good sort of runway ahead of me. And coming back here felt like a compromise. And there's clearly not as big of an investment market here in Seattle as there is in New York. And if any of you've been to New York is, I mean, I love Seattle, I grew up here, but New York is dope. And so that was a big change. For a long time, that stuck with me. But again, like I said in my presentation, you can really only connect the dots backwards. And to see what became my career and where I'm at now, a partner leading a firm and things like that, it's hard to say that was the wrong thing, right? But that was a very big moment in kind of an inflection point in my career.
Yeah, I think that's a Steve Jobs quote. It's a great
connecting the dots.
Yeah, exactly. HyeSun, any thoughts on pivotal moments in your career? I think you also talked about it a little bit in your presentation.
Yeah, I want to make some impress of my career goal or my life goal, why I choose software engineering as my second career. There's a moment when I moved to Canada, and I always have some ideas that I want to make the world in a better place. I want to make some positive impact to others, so that's always my life goal. And I also thinking around many other different jobs, like I think same way as Soyeon did. Like I put down all the possible jobs that I can choose, and I eliminate what I dislike. And then what I found that software engineering actually can change the world. Like, think about your cell phone or your laptop, whatever you used for software engineering, and if you're using any convenient application or software that changed your life, have you ever any experience that kind of things? I also have those things. So I think that maybe software engineering that really matched with my life goal, so I decided to switch my career as a software engineer. I think I loved my job right now because I make a lot of positive impact to be throughout the teams. I know you're hating teams sound though, but I hope to make the teams better and to make your work and life conveniently.
HyeSun, I actually want to stay on you for a second because in your presentation you called out 2 things, right? You said imposter syndrome and fake it till you make it, which you hear those a lot in career verbiage, I would say. But you know what's interesting is that I feel like for you, those 2 things may have been linked, and I'm not convinced you were faking it.
Yeah, sure.
Like, you can't fake winning a hackathon, right? So if I were to give you my super unofficial diagnosis. I think you were just being too humble and modest. And I think you were always a very skilled coder, and you had the skills. And I wonder if it's just in your nature not to be as loud, proud, and or boisterous. And obviously, winning those hackathons may have given you that win in sales. But I wonder, like, do you feel like that's a cultural thing as a Korean/Korean American? We have to talk about how, as Asian Americans, we do not flaunt our skills and stuff. And so, do you think that's part of it? Is that I don't think you were faking it. You had it all the whole time, but you were just not. You had that imposter syndrome, right? Is that fair to say? Would you say?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So, I can tell you one story when I taking some high school level mathematics and community college. At that time, I just have really little mathematics knowledge from Korea. So I thought that my mathematics level should be very low. Because in my high school or middle school in Korea, if I missed one answer, then they punished me, right? So that's why I hated mathematics. I started to hate that. But in community college, like professor asked some question and I just saying answer. There's no hesitation, right? It doesn't matter if I wrong or not. But my friends in my same school, they start to think that I'm good at math. Like such as for my first midterm exam, I think I received around like 80 something percentage, and then I thought that it's not good enough, like 80, it's not good, right? But I looking around my class and they said, oh, like 65 or 70, and then they really proud of themselves and they love this score, and they start to think that, oh, you're a math genius, how come you got that score, right? So maybe that's cultural things. I always a little bit being humble, like maybe I'm not good at enough because I'm not 100%, right? But at the same time, I think North American students, they don't really think that way. They're just comparing themselves from the maybe last week, or they don't really compare with classmates. They just think that, oh, if I got 670, I think I'm good, right? So I think that's a really different thing.
In that same light, and I want to ask each of you this question around your Korean American identity. We're in a room full of Korean Americans or Korean adjacent students, and thinking back again, connecting the dots. How has your Korean American or Korean identity shaped you? Been a benefit to you, perhaps, or even a disadvantage in some ways when you think about your career? YB, there aren't a lot of partners in venture capital firms that are Korean, right? And so I wonder how you've navigated your identity relative to your career. Softball question for you.
Yeah, I've taken both those questions from the topic before. I think that it was a huge struggle for me early on in my career, depending on how you're raised. Particularly, I won't say it's just us Korean Americans. I think it's Asian Americans in general, raised with a lot of sort of humility and deference, and you don't speak up. And that was me in the career workplace, right? And what I'd like, if you all take anything away from that as you go into your careers, into workplace, is you have to shed that somehow. That's what I did early on in years. And what happens is you don't say anything, and as you'll notice, your peers will. They will all. There's never going to be a stoplight where they get a red and you get a green. Now it's your turn to talk. And I would just put my head down and work hard, which is fine. And you believe that will be enough. And the tough part of it is it's not. You could be the best and you could work the hardest, but you need to advocate for yourself. You need to speak up. And it's frustrating because you work really hard, you do really good work, and you watch other people get ahead because they do more of that stuff. And it may not be in your nature to do it, but you have to learn how to do it to excel. And so that's part of it. And then, as you get older, like you said, now I'm the partner, it's weird, now the imposter syndrome, I think, is real all the way up. Even now, we own the firm, and it's like, hey, who needs to sign this? I guess it's me, right? That kind of stuff. But even now, as Asians, and this is a mixed blessing, right? You're gonna get to my age. I'm 72, by the way, and you're gonna look younger than you are. And you walk into meetings, and people are still they're doing this. Like, is your boss coming too? Like, because it's not you, right? And that's it's kind of a joke, but it's also how they're viewing you, right? You don't look like what I'm used to seeing as being the senior person, and you have to kind of break through that. And your instinct is going to be to overcompensate and don't do that, right? It's the stuff that Cheryl was saying and something like, be yourself, but you need to be you need to be bold and you need to own it, right? You are that good, right? You are that talented, and you should be proud to show it.
Yeah, Cheryl, what do you think? You've been in many different industries, obviously. I'm curious to get your perspective on your identity relative to your career.
Definitely ditto what YB said. It's when I first joined, even like Boeing, all male dominated space, and even also Microsoft, right? I mean, that's the heart of like, stretch yourself and let everybody know what you've done. But it was really hard because, like I said, my parents insisted that I speak Korean at home. But I also saw a lot, but yeah, those are things I had to overcome. But also to what Dr. Yi said, you gotta know yourself though. If you're not that good, you can't just say it, right? So really be true to yourself, and if you have accomplished, then yes, you also have to practice saying that. It's like, this is what I did, and I'm so proud of it. And the other aspect that I like to talk about is like my Korean, I guess, culture and identity. There's so much to be proud of. I mean, we have more than K-pop and Korean, dramas, right? There's like respect, right? Respect for elders, respect for people who know more than I do, right? Willingness to learn if I don't know. And those things really served me well. It really served me well. I talked a little bit about when I was at Boeing and I was like having meetings with like the Japanese or others, I started off with respect, since many of the people that I was like in my early 20s when I was flying to Japan and China and Korea for these meetings. But I start with fundamental respect. And, like the Japanese, I bowed, and yet out of my mouth came what they called perfect English. And so that really helped set the tone. And so on all the wonderful things that you bring back from your Korean culture, it really works to your advantage. But it's got to be a fine balance. And that's also an art.
Yeah, one thing that I remind young people is that, obviously, I think I'm the youngest on stage here, but our generation of Korean Americans do not benefit from the coolness that being Korean Americans have today. Like, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, like, it was not cool to be Korean.
Correct.
Okay? Like, there's a reason why our Korean is not as good as yours, probably, because we were pushed to assimilate. Right, and K-pop was not popular, Korean dramas was not popular, there was no BTS, there was no Blackpink, right? And so I feel like you all live in like the golden age of being Korean and Korean American, so really take advantage of that in many ways, right? Because like, who knew what Korean barbecue was in the 90s? Like, all my white friends want to go to Korean barbecue, and so really, really leverage that. Cheryl, I want to stick with you. You made some massive career pivots in your life. And I think that's what contrasts you with some of the other panelists here. You went to law school at 40, you said? Was it 40?
Man, he wants to get to that. I was 47.
Oh.
A Microsoft marketing director starting law school at age 47.
I mean, but that just makes it even more impressive, because I'm 34 and I don't think I can go to law school right now, right? So I'm curious, like, the thought process of I'm going to make this hard pivot from tech to law could not have been an easy one. I mean, I understand the heart that you had in terms of wanting to help the community, being a legal representative for those who don't have a voice. But like, at 47, to think, oh yeah, I can go and study with a bunch of 23-year-old 1Ls. I mean, it's tremendous confidence and or maybe delusion.
Stupidity.
Well, clearly you made it, so clearly you graduated and you're a practicing lawyer, so you clearly had the ability. But what was it that gave you that confidence to think, yeah, 47, I could still go to law school, right, and become a lawyer at 50? Like, that's not a normal thing anyone could really come to conclude.
Thank you for the question. I didn't get to my slide because I was all over the place. But my closing slide was really have a purpose for your goals and your dreams. A lot of people say, oh, my dream is to be a lawyer. My dream is to be a doctor. Well, why? Right? What the hell? So for me, I had a purpose. It wasn't because I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be an impactful and influential person. In my 20s, when I was running for city council, I had a personal mission statement. My personal mission statement was to positively impact the lives of those around me. That was my personal mission statement. And I carried it around. And so after my dad's passing, I thought, how the hell am I going to live the rest of my life? And I knew that I wanted to do something that was impactful and influential. And so, of course, law was, important. And the bigger purpose, the reason why I also did law is North Korea. I know is going to be the next frontier for us to go in and make a difference and drive impact. So in 2015, I actually visited North Korea. But I speak Korean, I speak English, I'm a US citizen. Well, nobody's recording this, right? Once North Korea, there's opportunity, I'm going to go in there with my legal background, and I'm going to make a difference. And so really, there's those purposes. And again, so every goal you have, make sure there's a purpose behind it. And also, I'm an incredibly passionate person. As you can tell, I'm almost like psycho. But everything I do, I go 110% in. So yes, at that age, I was making pretty good money at Microsoft, and I was doing pretty well. But I knew that that's something I had to do, and I just did it. So just do it. Nike, damn it, I should have trademarked it before that. Because I started using that before Nike did.
Well, I gotta say, one of the things I envy most about Cheryl is her energy, and there are no doubts that what energy she had to get through law school at 47. I want to pivot the conversation a little bit, talk a little bit about mentorship and networking, the value of this. I have a mentor who would tell me, Sam, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. It's not who knows you, it's what they say about you. So I want your thoughts and recommendations around networking and mentoring. Specifically, like, how do you find mentors, right? How do you recommend these students find mentors if they were to find somebody that they want to emulate in the future?
I'm also such a hard, believer in networking. I benefit also from mentorship and networking. And I also mentor, already this week I've mentored 2 people for breakfast meetings. I'm just going to talk about it by experience. You guys talk a lot about networking and mentoring, like, what the hell is it? But when I was in law school, there was, we've got speakers who come, right, and who talk about, like, judges who came, Supreme Court justices. And one of them was named Mary Yu. She's a Washington State Supreme Court justice. And I got to meet her and get to know her. And after law school, I was trying to figure out where I want to go to. And so I said, hey, Justice Yu, or Mary, that's what I call her, can we have coffee? And so, most law students don't even do that. They're like, how could I ask a Supreme Court justice to have coffee with me? You gotta be bold and you ask. All they can say is no. So I did, and I said, hey, Justice, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm looking for. And she goes, hey, Cheryl, I know this law firm. You know what? You should go have coffee with that, and let me give you an introduction. And I said, oh, well, thank you. Or maybe she said, look, to this law firm. And I said, well, can I use your name to say you gave me the introduction? I think that's what happened. And so then she said yes. And so, of course, I emailed, and I said, hey, Justice Mary Yu recommended I come talk to you. And you know what? I got a coffee session. And from that coffee session, I became in-house counsel to Steve Ballmer and his wife. Okay, this is impossible for somebody right out of law school. But because of my life experience, I was able to do it. But it was because of my mentorship and networking. She was my mentor. I went to her. I had a lot of meetings with her before. But also, because I networked with her, because she gave me that introduction, I was able to basically ultimately have that job and worked for, like, 8th or 9th richest man in the world. Did about 4.5 years, and I've learned so much from that, right? So it's just a tiny little example, but mentorship also, it doesn't mean somebody's going to reach out to you and say, hey, you want to meet up? Let me tell you. You got to be proactive. Like, in my age at 40-something, after I finished law school, I had a lot of networks. Like, some of these judges that came to law school, like, they were like, Cheryl! And we're giving hugs. And my classmates were like, oh my God, how does she know her? And then some of the judges said, Cheryl, are you working now at UW? I said, no, I'm a student here, right? But despite that, I networked and I reached out for coffee with about 55 law firm, like, senior partners or like managing directors. Because you learn from those engagements. So you really have to be proactive.
It's a lot of coffee.
when you're going to do something with your life, Cheryl, geez, accomplish something, huh? Leave some crumbs for us. Yeah, I would reinforce that the thing I was alluding to earlier in terms of networking and mentorship is kind of how it's played. And so I will confess I'm terrible at it, probably still to this day, and it was always something, I don't know if you'd call it sort of stubbornness or pride of not wanting to get help from others, right? Feeling like I could just do this on my own. I can just show that I'm good enough and get through that. And so, how that played out for me when I was at Microsoft and starting to get into venture capital, and here's a reference call back to the bumpy thing, this role in venture capital didn't get handed to me on a silver platter. I probably did 30, 40 interviews, like all over the country to find that role. And I did find one, and it was going to be on the East Coast again, and I was going to move back there, and there was a guy I worked with at Microsoft who used to run the Intel Capital office in Seattle, and he said, well, before you move across the country again, I know somebody over at Vulcan, why don't you talk to him and see what they're doing? And that is actually how I ended up this job, and again, kind of look back and like, because of that, this is how I ended up here. But why I bring that up is, I never asked that guy to mentor me. I probably could have, probably should have, and that was just sort of luck and a blessing that he felt that saw enough in me that he said maybe I'll do him a favor. And that's something I wish, if I look back, I'd done more of, that I had networked more. And what I would say is it's not something that there's a blueprint for, and it's never going to feel comfortable. So again, to hear her points about imposter syndrome, it's always going to feel uncomfortable. You kind of have to push through that unless you are like a super capital E like Cheryl. But you have to be proactive and do it. And the one thing I will say, and it doesn't apply just to mentorship, but do not be transactional. It is very apparent when you are, and so you don't want to do that. And the easiest way to do it is kind of just remember the old adage of give before you get, right? Is if you're going to ask someone for a favor, give them some value first. Do something. Show them at a minimum, even if you're going to walk up to me, at least show you're super passionate about this thing. You're super serious about this. Like I said, you've done your homework. This isn't just a get out of jail free card. This will be easy. But I will say, take it seriously. Like Cheryl said before, like the folks that network, not in a transactional way, it really is a big thing. All you folks look like amazing, wonderful people, but don't let this room be the only people you're hanging out with. I did a little bit of that in college too. Like, you want your network to be broader than this, right? There's no, Brantley Alexander III in here, and you want to kind of know those kind of people.
Yeah, I think both of you already talked very important things. So I'm going to talk about how you can use LinkedIn to find your mentor. Maybe more practical way.
Do you work for Microsoft?
Yes. We're sorry, LinkedIn is one of the Microsoft ones. So I think I also receive a lot of connection and messages throughout the LinkedIn, and I really happy to do some copy checks, such as at least 2 times in a week. I allocate some times for copy check and mentorship, anyone who reach out to me. So actually, cold mail wise, I think you heard about cold mail should not be worked, but actually some kind persons you can find and you can have a coffee chat with them. And be proactive is very important part, but don't be your message as just template things, right? So you need to show why you reached out to me, right? You need to share your experience, any connection related with me, or any background or whatever you have met with me. So in that case, I prefer to have provide some copy chat with them. So once you're sending some message, you always include some connection with me. And also for the LinkedIn, please keep post your updates, related to any kinds of career-wise one. If you're attending today's Career Symposium, why not sharing what you have run throughout the LinkedIn post? So if you such as tag those awesome mentors today, then their connection also seeing your post. So that really makes your post impactful before. And yeah, so that's the one way you can make some mentor throughout that. Yeah.
That's great practical advice. We are actually out of time. That went by quickly. But I'm going to finish with one rapid round question. I'm going to limit you to 1 sentence in response, okay? Give these students one piece of advice on their career in 1 sentence.
Have a purpose for what you want to do. Have a purpose for your goal. That's my quote. Have a purpose for your goal.
So be proactive, be yourself.
Great. All right, Ruby. Yeah, last one. Bring us home.
I'm gonna use some semicolons here. One is work harder, semicolon. Money is not that important, semicolon. This is gonna go by way faster than you think.
That's great. Thank you, everyone. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you, guys.